We're continuing today in our series of talking to club advisors or people that are involved in different clubs here throughout Emmaus High School, trying to get some information out to our freshmen. We did an episode previously with Mr. Spangler, who is in charge of the athletics and activities here at the high school. So now we're trying to get a little bit of information about all these different clubs. And today we have Mrs. Grimm and Mr. Pinho, who are here to talk a little bit about the Gay Straight Alliance, GSA, for short. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
So Mrs. Grimm, this is her second appearance on the show. She was on last March, right before the shutdown. We were talking about Career Month in March, which we had approximately 10 days of Career Month. So hopefully you saved all those plans. And for 2021, we can revisit Career Month. So we'll have to get you back on to talk about Career Month 2021. But you were on back then, so you can check back in and hear from her. But Mr. Pinho, as we kind of always ask our newest guest to go talk about their ninth grade year. So again, as always, we tell people you don't have to tell the year, the location, or any details. But what was your ninth grade experience like?
Sure. So I went to high school in a pretty rural area. And actually, so what was one of the things that was weird about that school was that because there weren't tons of students in the area, we didn't have a middle school. So we had a junior high that was attached to our high school. So really it was 7 through 12. So the only big difference between 8th grade and 9th grade was kind of the part of the building that I was in. But I definitely remember being sort of excited that you know, at the time, like didn't have to go to kind of like the junior high portion of the building and things like that. But I think it was probably pretty anticlimactic compared to most of the ninth grade experiences that students here are going to have, just in terms of the new building and integrating with new students from the other middle school and everything like that.
And do you remember in your ninth grade year, was there an event or a club that you joined or an activity that you did or something that you remember from that ninth grade year that may not have necessarily shaped what you have gone on to do with your life, but just something that you remember from that year that kind of has stood out for you since, you know, as an adult now?
Sure. So that was the only year that I attempted. So I was in a bunch of clubs in high school. That was the only year that I attempted kind of an organized high school sport. So we had a ultimate frisbee club that I was in, but I tried to play. I was on the boys soccer team, and I had been playing all my life, but had been kind of playing for like town club leagues and kind of mixed in with people who had been playing more competitively. And turns out that even though I was good in the club leagues, it was actually not that good for a 14 or 15-year-old, which kind of began a long understanding that I'm not super good at sports. But I got to make some friends who were like really in different circles than a lot of friends that I'd had previously. Because that time in sort of the arc of the social group that I'd been hanging out with had a lot of changes as people were kind of like meeting new friends and taking different classes and kind of like getting involved in different things. So there was definitely like a big shuffling around of who spent time with who in ninth grade that really kind of shaped the next couple of years for me. And I mean, in a lot of ways also shaped who I keep in touch with from high school.
So again, we always come back to this idea of getting kids involved and different stuff. And it seems like you had a lot of different experiences. So we have you on today to talk a little bit about the activity, the club that you guys advise, which is the Gay Straight Alliance. I don't know who wants to jump in first to kind of give a little bit of background about it or what you guys do, and just kind of tell us a little bit about what it is.
Sure. You want me to take this one?
Yeah, you're the okay. Veteran.
So this is my 7th year as the GSA advisor. When we started it out 7 years ago, it was me and the previous school psychologist, Mrs. Davenport. And we wanted to have somewhere that students could go and that they could feel safe and they could talk about their experiences and they could connect with other students who are LGBTQIA. And since that time, we've been meeting every other Tuesday. And we've been able to really make some changes at the high school that I'm pretty proud of. We've been involved in Day of Silence for the past few years. We've then turned that into an awareness week in April, which again, we didn't get to do in 2020, but we'll be doing something in 2021. And we have a neutral bathroom that was established due to the GSA. We've done trainings for staff. We've done lots of different things just to make it a safer, more inclusive high school for all students. We've worked hard to make sure that students know that the GSA is for students who are LGBTQIA, but also for students who are allies to that population. So we've been trying to do a lot for the whole Emmaus High School population.
And Mr. Pinho, this is your second year here at Emmaus. You kind of started, I believe, in the middle of last year as one of our school psychologists. Were you involved with the group last year, or is this your first year with it?
So I started in October last year, and I think on my second day, maybe, went to the club. I think I wasn't formally an advisor last year, but I went to all the meetings from October on, and it was really a great kind of way to get to know some students in the building who are really, I think we share a lot in common in terms of our sort of passions for equality.
So if I'm a ninth grader listening to this and I'm trying to figure out if this is the kind of organization or club that I could come to or be a part of, like as a ninth grader, what kind of expectations do you have for like somebody that wants to join? What opportunities might they have? And like kind of what do you do on like every other week? You said you meet, but like what does the club do?
So I kind of think of it as being divided into kind of two types of things that we do. The first thing is sort of more student-led activism. So the students will come up with ideas for things that they're passionate about that might sort of advance the cause of inclusion and recognition for the LGBT plus community. So that might be things like facilitating trainings or working on, like Mrs. Grimm said, gender-neutral bathrooms. But also we try to make space in club meetings for sort of the second thing, which is just to provide a safe space where students can have a good time and get to know each other. So we try to have that balance where the club is supposed to be fun, and we want to, whether it's playing games or having a movie day or just getting to know people from other grades who maybe you don't know well. Last year we had some folks from the LGBT plus program at Lehigh University come in and talk about college offerings for students in the community. And really, the hope is that we get students who are excited to be there. Anyone is welcome. And we're excited to try to reach out to more ninth graders this year. We had a few ninth graders at our first meeting, which we're excited about. One thing I wanted to be clear about was just that we don't necessarily expect you to sort of explain why you're there. Like there isn't this sense of like you show up and you say, well, I am this way, or this is sort of my like, how I identify within the community. So we definitely have allies who come. We definitely have students who come and kind of are willing to volunteer just in discussion how they feel about themselves. But also it's not necessarily the type of place where we're pressuring anybody to sort of like speak about themselves in a way that they might not be prepared for.
Correct. And just to piggyback on that, we never actually ask. We, as an introduction to every meeting, we ask students to go around and say their name and their pronouns, but we never ask how they identify, because that's not something that needs to be discussed as part of it. If they want to discuss that, they can. But again, we don't ask them to share that information.
Yeah, because I see, we have a lot of different activities here at the high school, and your organization, it's kind of like, as somebody coming in as a ninth grader, it seems like a pretty heavy topic to deal with, like coming in, like you're transitioning to a new school, and you have these different questions about like who you are as a person. And then you come to a meeting like this. So is there like encouraging ninth grade students? Is there a way to kind of, or what would you say to the ninth grade student that's kind of, not necessarily questioning things, but just kind of curious about your organization or curious about themselves? Like, it seems like you create a safe space for people to come, but just kind of, if I'm that like ninth grader that's kind of trying to figure out my way, what would you say to somebody like that?
So I would say that they can certainly attend a meeting. It's not like there's a commitment. We've had students who come once and then they decide that they may not feel like it's a fit for them, and that's okay. Again, it's not something that once they show up, they're committed to sharing more than they want to, or that they are committed to coming to every meeting thereafter. We don't have any kind of obligation in that way. We want kids to come at least once so that they can get a feel for it and see if it's a good fit for them. But we also don't pressure them into talking. So, as I said, we'll do names introductions, but as we're talking about a topic, if that student doesn't feel comfortable, we don't call them out by name and say, okay, it's your turn. We don't do that because we know that it's different for every student, and we know that they may not be at a point where they're ready to talk. They're just ready to listen, and that's perfectly acceptable too. So I would encourage them to try and come to a meeting, or they can also reach out to someone else who they think can go with them to the meeting so that it takes less pressure off of them as an individual. They could also reach out to Dr. Pinho or I to find out a little bit more information about the club before they decide to attend. There's lots of different things that they could do.
Right. It's definitely low risk. It's not as if we're a club where we're building towards some type of competition or performance. If you show up and then never show up again, you're not in any way sort of hurting us or leaving us in the lurch or anything like that.
And I agree with that, and wanted to say too that, to your point, it can be a very heavy topic. So we try and do a lot of things to keep it light. We talk about whatever the students want to talk about, but we also do, like Dr. Pinho said, we'll play games, we'll do movies, we'll bring food, we'll do different things to keep it a little bit more lighthearted too.
Well, and I think in terms of it being a heavy topic, that's certainly true. But also, by the time you're in 14, or by the time you're in 8th grade or going into 9th grade and you're 14 or 15, rather, you know people who are thinking about these things. It's not as if we're sort of introducing the idea to them. Having worked in a middle school before I came here, there were definitely lots and lots of students who were questioning or had already changed how they identified. And I think that giving a forum or a place to those students can be really, really important. And I think that that's one thing that's changed, since we were in high school, or at least since I was in high school, just in terms of it being something that the people are more comfortable talking about at younger ages.
So you said that you've already met. So if I was a student and I was interested in coming to a meeting, I know we're still in the virtual setting here at the high school. So if I wanted to attend a meeting, what do I need to do? Where can I go, and who can I reach out to?
So they can reach out to Dr. Pinho or I. They could email us. We do also have a remind code. So the remind code is at EmmausGSA. We also have an Instagram page. It is a private page, so they would have to request to follow, but that is also EmmausGSA. And we do have a Schoology group as well, so they can get that information from Dr. Pinho or I to join. And we also are on the morning announcements. So we do have that information on the morning announcements before we have a meeting.
And normally you guys will meet on Tuesday?
Yep, every other Tuesday at 2:30. So we met this week, so our next meeting will be in 2 weeks.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to share about, like, maybe things that are maybe upcoming for the year, or things that you may be working on as an organization throughout the year, kind of to highlight, to kind of, give people a final sense of what maybe you're going to be trying to accomplish this year with the club, and maybe how you're doing it virtually versus in person? I'm sure that creates a whole different set of challenges too, because, sharing things in a group where there's, you're not visibly in somebody's bedroom might make a difference, like being in a classroom versus being at home, those kinds of things as well too. So, what are you kind of sensing for this year for the organization, and then kind of like, what do you have in store?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The virtual has presented some challenges because there are some students in the club who may not be out to their families. So it's very different when they're trying to be part of that at home. And that's just something else I wanted to bring up, that it is confidential. One of the things that we tell the kids at the beginning is that we ask that anything that we talk about in there stays in there. So we're not going to say, oh, I saw you at GSA this week or anything like that. But our plans for this year are fluid. So there are things that we still have to kind of figure out once we know, are we back in person, or, what is it that we're going to do? So we have some ideas of things that we had been thinking about before the shutdown, such as more training for staff at the middle school level, even potentially putting together a talent show in the future, different events. We're not sure. But again, it's very fluid for this year, and it's driven by the students. So if we have new members who have new ideas, we're always open to those.
Great. So thanks a lot for taking a couple of minutes here to explain your club or organization to us here, so kids can get a better sense of that. So lots of different ways to learn about GSA, and, check out the morning announcements, and then all the different social medias that Mrs. Grimm mentioned there. So thanks a lot, Mrs. Grimm and Dr. Pinho. Sorry, I was calling you Mr. I don't want to sell you short there since you.
No worries. I don't get offended about something.
So thanks a lot, everybody. And Tuesdays after school, check them out.
Thank you.
Thank you.